So welcome everyone. I can see that many of you are joining. We're going to take some seconds to let you all join into the webinar, all that have been waiting. So welcome to our World of Association of Public Employment Services webinar today on labor market information, where we will today explore how labor market information is collected and distributed by our WAPES European members from Estonia, Sweden, and the United Kingdom. I'm very happy we have you all here, our presenters. Most of you know me, so my name is Nicole Clovis, and I have the pleasure just of welcoming you today. I'm not moderating. I'm a consultant at the WAPES, and I'm seconded from the German Public Employment Service, which is the Bundesagentur für Arbeit. So today's webinar will last around 1.5 hours, and it will be conducted in English, but you have also interpretation available in French, as we have many French speakers amongst us today. So you have the opportunity to see the little globe below in the little beside the chat box and everything. So then you can click on that and also use French if that is the language that you might want to choose. So the webinar will be recorded today, and it will be then made available to our members via the WAPES members area. And you can also see that all cameras and microphones are switched off. But if you have questions, you have the opportunity to put them in the chat, and we will check them for you, and we'll make sure that they get answered as soon as possible. But if they're not answered, so you don't need to worry at all, we will supply you later in the next couple of weeks afterwards with the questions that are still remains open. So I don't want to talk too much, and I don't want to take too much of your precious time that we have dedicated today to this webinar today. And I want to introduce our moderator of today, which is Mrs. Kerstin Holland, who is the head of international relation at the Estonian Unemployment Insurance Fund. So Kerstin, I give the word over to you.
Thank you, Nicole, and hello to everyone, no matter from which part of the world you are watching our webinar. As Nicole introduced, my name is Kerstin Holland, and I work as the head of international relations at the Estonian Unemployment Insurance Fund, the Public Employment Services of Estonia, or Eesti Töötukassa, how we say it in Estonia. I will be the moderator of today's webinar, and I will guide you through this 1.5 hours that we have dedicated to the topic of labor market information. I'm very grateful that within cooperation of World Association of Public Employment Services, WAPES, and the Public Employment Services of Sweden and United Kingdom, this webinar is taking place. The topic, as you know, is unlocking the potential of labor market information, and the idea for the topic of today's webinar stem from the practical necessity to exchange information on practices of labor market information. So how in the public employment services we gather information, we make it available to our internal users, external users, partners. So a different angle of practices will be shared today via different presentations. And so who will be here today talking? We will start with Estonia. My colleague, Miss Margit Paulus from the Analysis Department. She's the head of the Analysis Department. Margit will give an overview of what kind of labor market information we use and create in Estonian public employment services, and how do we make it available to our internal and external users. Also, Margit will introduce our statistics and reporting module, and also she will tell about how this module supports using data in the Estonian public employment services. Next, we will take a trip and go to Sweden. And we will hear from two good colleagues, Maria Dalhage and Jonas Södergren, who work in Arbetsförmedlingen. And Maria is the project manager focusing on open source and data in the Swedish Public Employment Service. And Jonas is the tech lead for the Swedish Public Employment Service. And also his focus is on open data and open source. In their presentation, we will hear about the different practices, different aspects, how Arbetsförmedlingen's digital transformation through the use of open data has taken place. And we will approach to leveraging open data and APIs to improve labor market functionality, foster innovation, and democratize access to information. Their presentation will highlight different key initiatives, which include enhanced collaboration with private sector actors, improved statistics, and smarter job matching. And we will see different showcases. Once this is done, another trip, then we will go to United Kingdom and we will hear from Mark Richards, who is the head of performance for Universal Credit within the United Kingdom's Department for Work and Pensions. And in Mark's presentation, we will hear about how data is produced in their organization, how is it used to monitor the daily operational performance, how it supports the daily activities, and also we will have a nice peek on different dashboards that our colleagues in United Kingdom use in regard to LMI, labor market information. As Nicole indicated, in the chat box, you can drop your questions during the presentations. After each presentation, there will be a 5-minute time that I will take the questions and moderate them to our presenters. Should there be questions that we do not have time to answer during this webinar, we will answer them in a written format and share the answers with you later on. But for sure, we can have a couple, 2 or 3 questions answered from the presenters in real time. But with no further ado, let us start with the most interesting part, with the presentations. So I will give the floor to my good colleague, Margit Paulus, who will talk about the practices that we have in the Estonian Unemployment Insurance Fund regarding LMI. So Margit, the floor is yours.
Hello, from my side, I tried to share my screen. So I hope you can see my slides. Okay. As Kerstin mentioned, in my presentation, I will give a short overview what kind of labor market information we use and create in Estonian PES, and how do we make it available to our internal and external users. And I will also shortly introduce our statistics and reporting system, TARU, and how it supports using labor market information in our PES. But before I start, let me briefly introduce you Estonian PES, Estonian Unemployment Insurance Fund, or Eesti Töötukassa. We are an independent public body with service points all over Estonia, and we have a bit less than 1,000 employees in Estonian PES in total. And our core tasks are helping job seekers to find job, providing active labor market policy measures, paying benefits and allowances, and assessing workability. Now let's move to the first part of my presentation, which is about the sources of labor market information we use at our PES. And the main source we use is our own Unemployment Insurance Fund database, which contains data of all PES activities, like the data of registered unemployed, vacancies, different services, benefits, and so on. The database that we have, it contains different kind of data, mostly data generated in our daily work, such as inserted to the information system by counselors or data generated by automated processes. But it also contains data of our clients from other registers via X-Road. And let me briefly explain what X-Road is. X-Road is a secure data exchange system in Estonia for sending and receiving data between different organizations. Every person in Estonia has a unique personal identification number that is used in all registers. And this personal identification number has allowed to apply the principle in Estonia that data is collected from persons only once. And if the same information is needed in other registers, then registers exchange data via X-Road. For example, data of our clients' education or previous employment comes to our database via X-Road from the education register or employment register. And in total, Estonian PES has more than 50 X-Road services to request data from other registers. And we also have more than 30 X-Road services to our partners to send them data. And as probably all other PESs, we also use information and data from other institutions. And we use it for different purposes. For example, labor market statistics provide a broader overview of the overall labor market situation. For example, macroeconomic forecasts of the Ministry of Finance is used as an input to our forecasts. For example, 4-year forecast about our unemployment insurance funds that we must submit to the government every year. Then labor and skill demand forecasts from Estonian Qualifications Authority are used as a basis for deciding the fields of training we provide to our clients. And also the data from other registers is in frequent use. For example, data from employment register we use twice a year to calculate the results of the key performance indicators we monitor, such as moving to the employment and remaining in employment. Let me now move to the next part of my presentation, where I would like to introduce our statistics and reporting tool, Taru. In a nutshell, Taru is a data warehouse with statistics and reporting module for sharing and data in a user-friendly and visualized way in organization with our internal users. So the data from operational databases are clean, unified and structured and taken to the data warehouse. This is all done by our external partner Resta, who is responsible for the development of the data warehouse, of course in close cooperation with our analysis and IT departments. And the data warehouse contains organized data, which our analysts can conveniently process using the BI software Tableau for this. And the analysts create reports and dashboards, which are published and shared with the end users in the statistics and reporting module of Taru using in Tableau server. About 2/3 of employees of Estonian PES have access to Taru, and this includes different positions from councillors to the management board. And by now we have more than 250 dashboards available in Taru. And as the data in Taru is updated every morning, up-to-date information on all levels of PES is always available. Taru supports using data in daily activities on all levels of PES. It can be used for different purposes, most widely for planning and the daily work and monitoring main outputs and performance of the activities. For example, our councillors can easily get an overview of their clients. Regional managers can monitor the local labor market situation and keep an eye on the workload and performance of their councillors. Service teams can monitor the service provision, for example, in different regions. Management board can monitor the main statistical indicators and the results of key performance indicators for the whole organization and so on. And thanks to the well-organized data in the data warehouse, analysis department can do their everyday work more efficiently and also share the results of analysis more easily with relevant users in the organization. And visualize dashboards in our statistics and reporting module also support using data with our external partners. For example, if some of our employees need to make presentations, then it's easy to take the necessary graphs or tables from the statistics and analysis module. And in addition, Taru also has enabled us to develop more advanced data-driven projects, which I will tell you a bit more later. And in general, I would say that Taru has supported the evidence-based service provision and design in our PES. On this slide, you can see some examples of dashboards we have in Taru. And we have different kind of dashboards. There are dashboards for all users in PES, and there are also dashboards for specific user groups. For example, there are dashboards for councillors, special dashboard for regional managers or service teams, dashboards for management board, and so on. And the access to the dashboards is regulated by the user rights, so all the users can see only the information that is necessary to their position. And different dashboards contain different kind of information. There are dashboards with statistics and trends of PES main activities. Councillors can see in their dashboards also the list of the clients they need to work with. Service teams have dashboards also with a list of service providers or service contracts if they need to go in depth with their activities. And there are also dashboards, for example, for budget monitoring or monitoring the key performance indicators. And on this slide, you can see some examples, as I said. For example, this dashboard on the I'm pointing at the moment. This is the overview of the main characteristics of registered unemployed today. This dashboard gives the overview of the provision of labor market training in certain time period. Then this one I'm pointing is the dashboard for the management board to monitor the main indicators of statistical indicators of PES activities. This is the dashboard for budget monitoring, and here you can see the dashboard of key performance indicators compared to the targets set for the certain period. As I mentioned before, the data warehouse has allowed us to use data for more advanced data-driven projects. And for this, we have a 4-year data science agreement with a software development company, Nortal, and researchers from the University of Tartu. And there have been several projects under this contract. For example, the decision supporting tool OIT and automated impact evaluation MALLE has been developed. And the main results of OIT and MALLE are also published on Taru dashboards. And on my slide, you can see some examples of the graphs we have in Taru. But a bit more about OIT and MALLE. OIT, as I said, is a decision support tool which predicts the probability of registered unemployed moving to employment within 6 months, and it also identifies the factors affecting it. And according to the probability of moving to work, the clients are divided to 4 groups. From low probability to high probability, or from red to green, as you can see on that graph. And based on that information, counselors can decide in which channel the counseling for a certain client should take place, or how often a certain client should be invited to counseling. And about MALLE, MALLE is a tool for evaluating the impact of active labor market policy measures. And at the moment, it involves our larger services such as training, apprenticeship, wage subsidy, and work rehabilitation. And MALLE evaluates the impact of those services on the job transition and the salary. And on this graph, you can see one example of the results of impact of different trainings. There are occupational trainings, ICT trainings, and Estonian language trainings. And as you can see from the graph, the Estonian language courses in long term have the highest impact on moving to employment. So in addition to the, I would say, rich information we have in Taru, we also keep an eye on what's going on in the economy and in the labor market. So our analysis department gathers and synthesizes the information about the overall economic and labor market situation, recent macroeconomic forecasts, and labor market studies. And this information is shared twice a year with all employees of PES in the form of newsletters and online briefings via Microsoft Teams. So this was all I wanted to say about how we use and create labor market information internally. And let me now finish with the information we share on our website with our external partners. Firstly, we publish the main statistical indicators of our activities on our website. And similarly to our internal statistics and reporting system Taru, the statistics on our website is also published on visualized and interactive dashboards using Tableau Public. Most of the dashboards on our web page are updated once a month, with one exception. There is the dashboard of number of registered unemployed, which we update daily. And all the data sets of the main statistics of PES are also available in the Estonian Open Data portal. So another tool we publish on our website is labor demand barometer, which is the short-term regional labor demand forecast by occupations. And this is carried out twice a year by the employees of our PES's regional offices. And it provides information which occupations in the labor market are facing shortage of workers and which occupation are in excess in the coming 12 months. And on this graph or picture, you can see an example of the output of barometer. And this is about the healthcare assistance. And you can see that in most regions of Estonia, there is a labor shortage or large labor shortage of healthcare assistance in 1 year perspective. And finally, you can find from our website the studies and analysis related to PES activities. And these studies and analysis are compiled by our analysis department or commissioned from external partners. So this is all I wanted to say about creating and sharing labor market information at our PES. Thank you for listening, and if you have any question, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you.
Margit, thank you for the presentation. We have had a couple of questions in the chat box. So first of all, one of our listeners would like to know if the Estonian Public Employment Service integrates AI into your labor market information or decision-making support tools, and if so, Margit, if you could elaborate a little bit.
Yes, we use AI in decision support tool, and also we use it in other data-driven projects, or at least try to use it in our tool called Oswald, which tries to match the skills, find the skills from the CVs and job ads. But we are still in progress with that project. Thank you.
Thank you, Margit. Mike. And another question, if I may, from the chat box. How is labor market information concretely used at the service of the job seeker? So I believe it is the question about how labor market information is used for providing the service, getting maybe the Sandri, if you could elaborate a bit. I believe, yes, for providing background information, Margit.
Yes, I think in career counseling services, the information about the labor market situations and also this labor demand barometer I told you about is actively used. So the counselors can tell our clients about the current labor market situations and the future trends, and that suggest maybe the trainings, what are useful to study to find more easily a job.
Very clear, good concrete examples. Thank you. Another question, could you please share which were the organizations or the public employment services that provided inspiration to you to create such a comprehensive system?
Thank you. Yes, we have kept our eyes open what are other BESs doing, and for example, we have learned a lot from Germany. They have the impact evaluation tool Treffer, and our Malle that I told you about is inspired of German's tool, but also this labor demand barometer. When we developed this tool, then we also had study visits, and we seeked information from Finland and I think Sweden also, if I remember correctly.
Thank you, Margit. So quite a comprehensive international cooperation is behind creating the system that is in use in the Estonian public employment services. Margit, once again, thank you so much. As promised, we will have a small trip now, moving from the Estonian perspective a bit northwest to Sweden. And we will hear from Jonas and Maria about the digital transformation through open data that has taken place in Arbetsförmedlingen. I hope I pronounced correctly. And yeah, the floor is yours.
So, thank you. And can we get help to get the presentation working? So, hello everyone. Nice to be here and today and talk to you. My name is Jonas Södergren from Swedish Public Employment Service, Arbetsförmedlingen, and I have my colleague Marie Dahlhage with me today. And we will focus a little bit how open data could be an enabler for more innovation and collaboration on the labor market. Next slide, please. So Arbetsförmedlingen is quite large, 10,000 employees. And I think we could stop a little bit on this slide and think about the labor market through the years, like for back to 1950s to 2024. I think the mission for a government has basically been the same, to help job seekers and employers connect. And but I think a lot have changed in Sweden and your countries as well during these years. Digitalization, privatization, new laws, and there are employers are demanding more qualified workers and competences. So basically, they have the same mission, but the condition has changed on the labor market itself. So I think, and Arbetsförmedlingen, Swedish Public Employment Service, has an important role to be like a nave or engine on the labor market to get the matching working. But the challenge here is basically that we need to refine ways to create value with the same mission here. So I think for this slide, I think very big government. I'm working on the IT department. And I think that a lot of the data production is, of course, on the analytics side. So that's the reason why those boxes are highlighted here. So, but I think the keyword on this slide is that we need to find ways to collaborate with others more here. Yeah. So next slide, please. So I will start with a a graph directly here. And I think the reason is that I think in the end, we will create no impact if we don't have any users or usage when we're working with the data. So, and typical data that the government shares open data today is like job ads, forecasts, occupations, information about competences, and as well an understanding of the labor market, how these complex terms are connected to each other, what kind of competences are connected to occupations and so forth. So we're sharing a lot of data today. So, and I think if we think a little bit about the background, I think that, I mean, systems, organizations, and people on the labor market need to be connected. I mean, that's some kind of fact, and it's always been like that. But traditionally wise, a couple of years back, I mean, job seekers and employers and so forth have been working in silos. So, but in the end, someone needs to connect these things, and it's been the citizens' role to bring their own data between different services on the labor market. But in the era of digitalization, I think we can do more how to we connect with each others. So we have data, we have a lot of users today, and I think another key aspect of this when sharing and working with data is that what is innovation, for example? I mean, basically, I mean, it's not up to me or the government to decide, or caseworkers. If we could share data, probably someone else will innovate on the data itself. So we need to start sharing data. And today we see typical usages, there are a lot, the red staple here. It's around, I think, 8-9 million requests every day. It's quite simple requests, more what kind of ads do you have and so forth, and get touching job ads. So I think a typical job board and the recruitment companies today asking a lot about job ads. So, and there are another typical use in the step number 2 here around occupations and concepts. And I think it's a large field how to determine what kind of occupations there are. I mean, you know, basically working with the European standards around this. And the green staple, that's in that area, I think there are a finite number of organizations actually working with large investments in new technology for a better matching. For example, AI-powered solutions, how to build the solutions of tomorrow. And I think so there are different kind of users, but I think I will really point out that we need to collaborate, and I think all this data is today delivered through APIs to our users. So yeah, so there is a usage today. So I think we could go to next slide. But another insight I think we have done is that there are as well some kind of diversity when you have thousands of users. I mean, for example, I mean, scientists working with statistics on the labor market really need to get the raw data for things like occupations and job ads and so forth. But there is a complex processing of the data, and you need to have time and effort. You put an effort into to use the data. But for a recruitment company working directly with career guidance with the job seeker, doesn't necessarily have the budget for working with complex IT solutions. So then we need to build data services on top of the data. So there are, we need to find ways to deliver the same data through different distributions or delivery mechanisms, so to speak. And in the end, I think a lot of users, organizations are trying to build the same system in the end, how to get job seekers and employers to meet. And I think if we could open up even more to actually share and build and help each other to build a system for matching, then we need to open up the system itself. So that's why we're trying to work with open source as well. So we have like different offerings how to work with our data. And I think you could go to the next slide. And a concrete example around open source is we're working with a design system for the Swedish Public Employment Service. I think the more uniform interaction is really important, so the user can or familiarize how we interact with them. And but basically, we have 300 other governments in Sweden trying to figure out working with the same questions here. The only difference is that they maybe have a little bit different colors. So why couldn't we come together and trying to build one system for the citizen here? So we are really working and pushing and with an open source solution for a design system. I think it's maybe someone in this meeting that could actually bring this home and see if there are something here that you could use in your organization. So that was everything from me. So over to you, Maria, and we could go to the next slide.
Thank you so much, Jonas. My name is Maria, colleague with Jonas, and I'm going to share an example on how we have been collaborating with the private job boards when it comes to job ads. And we have identified 3 key success factors when it comes to collaborating with private stakeholders. And this is what I'm going to present on the next few slides. It's about how we are designing for contribution, how we are respecting the private sector's business models, because otherwise they will not collaborate with us, and also how we are working on sharing open data and open source. And since we are sharing this slide presentation, for those of you who would like to learn more, you can see a link here and you can click on it later. Next slide. Thank you. So let's start from the beginning. And the beginning means our regulation. What does it say? Well, as you can see here, there are 2 paragraphs which I'm showing out of many paragraphs. But, well, the Arbetsförmedlingen, we shall effectively bring together those looking for work with those looking for labor. And also we should actively obtain information on job vacancies. And further on, you can read that we shall also assess the labor market situation in order to provide a basis for decision making. In order to do these things, we need data, and we need data on job vacancies. And as many of you know, in Sweden we have Platsbanken, and that is the Swedish National Job Board, which we are maintaining. But it's not mandatory to post a job ad on Platsbanken. So many companies, employers are actually using private job boards. And therefore, in order for us to be able to succeed with our mission, we need to collaborate with the private job boards because we need their data. Next, please. So what we did now it's 4 years ago, 2020, we started to have this dialogue with the private job boards, and mainly we asked them 2 questions. The first question was an easy one, and we just sent out an email. Would you like to collaborate with us when it comes to job ads? And within 48 hours, we got an answer from all of them saying, yes, of course. And these are the biggest job ads job boards in Sweden, of course, not all of them, but the biggest ones. And the second question we asked them was, why are you not posting your job ads through Platsbanken? And this was the question we asked in a physical meeting. And they said that they would love to collaborate with us, but it needs to be in a way where that works with their business model. And we found out that they need the ads, well, actually, they need the traffic to their sites. And some of these job boards, they even get money per click. So not only do they need the ad, they also need the click. And well, Arbetsförmedlingen, we don't need any clicks. We just need information. So we were thinking together, would it be possible to find a win-win situation where we at Arbetsförmedlingen gain the data which we need, and at the same time, the private job boards get that traffic? Next, please. So we came up, yes, thank you. This is perfect. So we came up with a solution, which is an API called Job Ad Links. And this is the process that we go through together in order to actually have this API. So the first step is that we, Arbetsförmedlingen, we need to collect the ads, and there are two ways of doing it. Either the private job boards have an API which they want us to use, or they say you can scrape us. This is the first step of designing for contribution. We need to lower the barriers for the private actors, because they are the ones, they will not collaborate with us if it's a burden for them or if it's costly for them. Have in mind that the whole collaboration we have with the private job boards is of free will, and there is no monetary transaction. So everything is about finding a win-win situation and creating a greater good. The second step is that we need to map into the same format, and this is also a way of designing for contribution or lowering the barriers for collaboration. As you know, there are many ways to express a job ad, and different job boards will have different ways of doing this. And then we will have problems with interoperability. So what we have done instead is, when we have collected the job ad, we are afterwards choosing this open format job posting, and we are mapping all of the ads to in the same format. The next step are steps of enrichment. We are enriching the ads with the Swedish statistics codes for occupation. And then later on, we are enriching with place and profession. And the reason why we are doing all of these enrichments is because at the end of the day, what we are sharing is a lot of URLs, but it's not easy to search and filter on an URL. So we need to have something to search and filter onto. Then we go about highlighting duplicates. And by a duplicate, I mean a job ad that can occur either in one job board or in several job boards. And what we realized was a couple of years ago is that we knew we had these kind of duplicates, but we didn't know how many duplicates we had, and we didn't really know how they were created and why there were some duplicates, and we couldn't even understand, could it be one duplicate or 20 duplicate? What does it look like? But when we were collaborating and gathering all this information from the private parties, we started to see a pattern. And with all of these data, we could also tweak on different algorithms and find a good solution to actually identify and highlight these duplicates. And at the end of the day, we realized that out of all job ads in the Swedish labor market, digitally, 20% were duplicates. And now come to the last step, truncating the ads. That means that when we have collected the ads, mapping them, enriched them, we are removing like almost all text about the ads. And the reason why we are doing that is because we have this principle back to site. And that principle is what makes it possible for us to respect the private job boards business models. If there is no text to read, of course, the person who's clicking on, who's interested in the ad, needs to click on the URL. And that makes the traffic to the websites of source or of site. So after all of this has been done, then we have the JSON file, which you can reach through this API. Next, please. And this is what it looks like. On one hand, you can see the JSON file, and then you can see how it's visualized on our Platsbanken. So you can see that we have the title, systemutvecklare, that's a software engineer. Then you have the city, that's the kommun Gävle. You can see the two first sentences, and then you can see the URL. Had this been a duplicate, then you would have seen two URLs because we would not have removed them. We would just have highlighted and showed both versions because we, Arbetsförmedlingen, in our service, do not want to choose which URL to click on. That's the choice of the person looking and trying to find the ad. Next, please. And this is my last slide. And that what's the effect out of all this? Well, first of all, today we can see that around 20% of all the job ads you can find in Platsbanken has this back to site logic. It means that it's through this collaboration job ad links. And since we have more job ads, it's easier for the job seeker to actually find the job ads and hopefully at the end of the day, find a new job. And maybe even more important, we have a better understanding of the labor market. We can identify and we can analyze without duplicates. We can automatically also add statistic codes to private job boards ads, which makes it easier for us to analyze these kind of ads. And what we have seen is that many of the private actors have started to use the same occupation and skills taxonomy as we have, not because they're forced to, but because they see the common value of interoperability. And what we have also seen as a success factor, working with open source code makes the whole process very transparent, which means that you can trust our information. And also you can trust the way we are working, and that's a big win. That was all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. And inspiring all the participants, as I was inspired from your presentation, I encourage everyone to post their questions into the chat box. From there, Maria and Jonas, I will also pick a few, so whoever of you feels more comfortable to answer is welcome to do so. But to start with, could you please elaborate on the scraping versus API in terms of resources and what proportion of your postings come from each approach, please?
I can start by answering it, and then Jonas, you can fill in. Scraping, of course, makes it more difficult and it's more time consuming for Arbetsförmedlingen. But we are getting better and better in understanding this, and since we have done it a couple of times, it's getting we can do it rather quickly. When it comes to the API, it's an API which the private job board must already have, and if they don't have it, then well, it's a problem. Because then they have to develop it, and that's cost of development. So scraping means that they don't have to do anything, but of course we need the skill. What's interesting is that we are using an open source scraping tool, and we are of course sharing both techniques and knowledge. So if anybody else want to do the same thing, we are pleased to help out. That's what we should do within the SPES community. Jonas, would you like to add something?
I totally agree, and I think it's most effective to use APIs when to handle information structurally. But sometimes when you have the goal to that it should cost like $1 or €1 for private actor to join, then it's more effective to do it that way. So I think it's a cost-benefit analyze that. Yeah.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Jonas. Another question: what measures have you put in place to encourage private companies to work with your public employment service?
One thing we have done is we are trying to be very transparent in the dialogue. So by having open dialogues and also communicating a lot in open channels, it makes it possible for others to actually see what we are doing and also making it possible for them to join us. For instance, when it comes to this project or this work we have with job boards and private job boards and job ads, we do have everything, the repository is open, and we also have a public backlog. So we are collaborating, for instance, with academia. Those who would like to work on real data, doing real problems, quite often students, the master year, doing their master exams and so on, they are collaborating with us and they get the real projects, but we also get real knowledge. So that's a win-win as well.
Thank you, Maria. Jonas, one question to you. If you could possibly repeat and elaborate a little bit further on the expectation for the audience that you have brought up at the end of your presentation, referring to the common and open design system.
So I think my point was that as well, for the Arbetsförmedlingens point, I mean, we are tax funded, so I think we have a responsibility to work together and try to be as open as possible together with you, of course. And but basically, I mean, a lot of organizations trying to do the same thing here and reinvent the wheel. So I think it's important to try to find smart way to work together, and I think open source and design system is a good way to get started in working together.
Thank you, Jonas. One final question. What would be the lesson learned that you would put on the heart of our listeners if they would like to take the path that you have taken? Maybe one or two concrete examples, what to bear in mind?
I really think that one lesson that we learn is that the value is the data available or is it not available? So I think if you do provide data in a nice, I think don't overthink it. The value is it available or is it not available, I think.
Maria, would you like to add your point of view?
No, I totally agree with Jonas. Start today. Look at what you have and start. What can you start sharing? And then somebody will find the interest in that.
Thank you. Thank you to Sweden. Thank you to Maria and Jonas for contributing to our today's webinar on labor market information. We will now again have a little geographical trip and move on to United Kingdom, where we have already Mark Richards waiting and to give us an overview of their practice of how labor market is gathered, stored, and then shared inside and outside the organization. So Mark, thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Kirsten, and hello, everybody. So as Kirsten said, I'm Mark Richards, and I'm the Head of Performance for Universal Credit in the Department for Work and Pensions. And I'm going to talk to you about a few things about Universal Credit, but then more specifically, our labour market offer and how that works with Universal Credit. So if you flick onto the next slide. So who are we then? So we are the Department for Work and Pensions, as I say, and the department is responsible for our welfare benefit system, our pensions for our later life customers, and also our child maintenance policies as well. And between all of the benefits that we service, we administer pensions and working age benefits to 20 million claimants and customers. But our benefits that support customers of working age that are seeking labour market support are universal credit and the contributory benefits, new style benefits, as we call them as well. So they're the main benefits that I'm going to focus on today, because they really fit into our labour market offer across the department. So on to the next slide. This is just a high level view. So universal credit is a dynamic benefit that includes our existing unemployment benefits, housing benefits, and our tax credits as well. And crucially, what makes it different to previous legacy benefits that we've had within the United Kingdom is that universal credit, or UC as we call it, includes employed customers as well. Now, in terms of our labour market offer, what conditionality regime a customer sits within will then set how much labour market offer we support. And I've got a breakdown further on of how many customers sit in each of those regimes and a few of the differences between them. But to give you an idea of the scale of our operation, we have 650 job centres across Great Britain. We have 15,000 work coaches, so that our work coaches as whose role it is to move our customers closer and eventually into work. And we deliver that support through around 850,000 appointments per week to 7.3 million claimants. And that all accounts for £80 billion worth of benefits being paid. So that's kind of a high level overview of universal credit. But if we go through the next slide, I'm just going to touch briefly on our data, like my colleagues from Estonia and Sweden have done, and kind of how that works. So this is a quick visual on how our data is shared externally and to whom. So the Office for National Statistics publishes our employment statistics and our claimant counts across our benefits. So they publish all of our external data, and that is open to the public to use, open source. But then our internal data and our forecasts go to a department called the Office for Budget Responsibility, and they use our internal data and forecasts to publish benefit forecasts. So they're an independent body that advises the government of the day on what our forecast for our benefits will be going forward, which in turn then feeds in places like the Bank of England and then eventually the Treasury to understand the state of the economy and to make a better informed fiscal decisions. So our external data is available in terms of our employment statistics and our claimant counts, but then we use our internal data, which is a more granular in order to inform the Office of Budget Responsibility, the Bank of England, and the Treasury, so they can get a better forecast and better outlook on what the economy is going to be looking like going forward. Now, in terms of our internal data, if I just flick to the next slide, how do we use our internal data to drive our operational performance? We have here our performance framework. So we have operational key performance indicators, or our ops KPIs as we call them. And those KPIs are split between, if you look at the pyramid on the left-hand side there, they're split between our primary KPIs at the top of the pyramid, our secondary measures in the middle, and then our contextual measures at the bottom. So the difference between those is, to be a top-line KPI at the top of the pyramid, it must fulfill two requirements. One, it must align with our department's strategic priorities, and those are on the right-hand side there. But the other requirement is that it must be something that DWP has influence over. So I would never ask the operations, for example, to meet a measure that they can't influence. It sounds a simple premise, doesn't it? But you would be amazed how often that still happens, and how often people try and make something a KPI because they're interested in that number. But actually, if an operation cannot influence that KPI, then we don't allow it to be a KPI. So that's our top line KPI. And then we have our secondary measures, which is the layer underneath. And these are what I refer to as our lines of inquiry. So if something is not right with the top line KPI, then the secondary measures are the first place I look, because within there are levers that help influence the top line KPIs. And that's the key distinction. With the secondary measures, we have influence, but not full control. And then finally, our contextual measures at the bottom. These are the measures that we cannot control, but they help tell the story of why performance is the way it is. So for example, we as DWP cannot influence the deprivation index of a part of the country, the amount of poverty, the standard of education and housing. We can't control that, yet it does help tell the story of why performance related to moving people into work might not be as high in one area as another, because the performance coaching culture that we've tried to create within UC is heavy on storytelling. So having those contextual and secondary measures really allows us to have meaningful conversations without overreacting to just one number. So that's a bit about the performance culture and how we help drive that on. And I'll go into a bit more detail now about what that means for our labour market offer. So if we flick to the next slide, I talked a little bit earlier about the different regimes that our universal credit customers are placed in. And this is to ensure that they have the right labour market offer based on their circumstances and readiness in the labour market. So you can see within the middle of the screen there, our largest pool of customers are in the work group that we refer to as no work-related requirements. And this list is not exhaustive, but this includes customers who are deemed to have limited capability for work from a health perspective, or they're over pension age, or they have certain primary carer responsibilities. So that accounts for the highest proportion of our caseload there, to the tune of 2.98 million customers. On the right-hand side there, you can see our working enough regime. And as the name suggests, these are customers who are working some or self-employed but on low income and rely on universal credit to top up their income. But these are primarily customers who are already in work. But the main focus, which is in the top left-hand corner for our labour market offer, is the regime that's called the intensive work search regime. And these are our customers who are able to work but are not at the moment, or they work but very low amounts in terms of hours and income. And these customers are expected to take part in intensive action to secure work or more work by attending regular work search reviews or work focus interviews, at least fortnightly, but quite often weekly. And they are expected to undertake activities to prepare themselves for work and then eventually move into work. So in terms of our operational performance, we have what we refer to as our labour market dashboard. So if we flick to the next screen, these have been designed to reflect the story laid out in the pyramid earlier on in the presentation. And what you have on the slide here is just a screenshot of one of the pages in our dashboards, which shows that one of the disciplines that we have in building dashboards and providing dashboards to our operational colleagues on the front line is that all of our data must be able to be presented uniformly from our national level, our one figure at the national for the UK, right down to the local geographical levels. And in fact, other than this page here, which is an older version of our headlines page, all of our data in the individual metrics goes all the way down to individual job centre levels. So those 650 job centres I mentioned earlier, dotted all around the UK, all of the data that we've got KPIs for, they go all the way down to our individual job center level, giving our frontline leaders the data and the insight that they need to drive performance forward. So you can see the breakdown there. We've got 7 areas around the country: Wales, Scotland, London, Southern, Central England, Northwest, Northeast. So those are our areas. And then I won't go through the 11 groups and 37 districts because we'll be here all day, but you get the idea. Now, if we move on to the next screen, this is almost our landing page, our home page for our leaders up and down the department. So it doesn't matter which part of the hierarchy that you're in. There's a hierarchy on the left hand side there within those pull downs, which gives you the information that you need at that level. So I might be an area director for Scotland, for example, and that might be what I'm interested in. But if I'm in a local job centre in Edinburgh, then I would just select my job centre on the left-hand side, and all of the information that you can see on screen there will refresh down to my level that I need to look at, the hierarchy that I need to look at. And if you note just on the left-hand side there, just going down the side, you can see we've labelled the KPIs between primary and secondary. So primary, if you recall earlier, is that top tip of the pyramid. Those are our top line KPIs that we should be focused on. And then underneath then, our secondary measures, which are lines of inquiry. So what that means in practice is, if I'm a local leader, and my top line KPIs are flashing secondary measures underneath is where I would go to the case. And then when I click on any of these tiles that you can see here, it will take me into a more detailed page so I can start to drill down and understand what is happening underneath that data. So for example, if we flick to the next screen, just pretend that I've clicked on the interwork tile, for example. What we've got here is a trend view of our interwork measure. So our interwork measure, our bread and butter, if you like, is the percentage of customers who have evidence of earnings coming through that didn't have that in the previous month. So we have made the assumption that they have moved from not being in work to into work. And we monitor the percentage of what those customers are, and we can track that across a long period, as you can see there, a longer period, but also we can break this down from our national level, our area level, and as I said earlier, right down to that local job centre level. And what we try and focus on trend views, because that kind of stops people panicking when a certain number drops in any certain period, because I know, without even looking at this graph, that our interwork rates will be the lowest in January, then they'll climb until June, they'll drop back down, and then they'll go back up in October every year, like clockwork, because that's how our economy works as well. We've got seasonal work, we've got work that's impacted by people being in and out of full-time education. So we've got a pretty good idea of how that trend views. Whereas actually, if I was just showing this as one number and our interwork rates were down in July, that would just set panic stations, but actually it's following the trend. So we try within our performance coaching culture to always keep that trend view going there, which is what this view is for. But I have got a few other views as well. So if you kind of flick to the next screen, this is a really good view. This is a more detailed view of our interwork performance here. So the key point here is that we don't just display this information because it looks good or it's cool, even though it is. It's because what this allows a local leader to do is to tailor their labour market offer locally to suit the demographics of their customer base. So for example, where I am in South Wales, we have a slightly older customer base. So our leaders in that area will be looking at that box in the top right-hand corner there and understanding, okay, what are the age demographics of my customers and what do I need to do locally to cater the training that we have locally, the provisions that we've got from our local providers to support those slightly older customers in moving into work, because what works in Scotland may not work in London, may not work in Wales. And in London, for example, we could have a customer base who have, looking at the graph in the bottom left-hand corner there, they could have a customer base who have a disproportionately high number of customers who've been out of work for a long time. And again,
Mark?
you're locally, yes?
Sorry, since you are a few of the native speakers here, could you please slow down a little bit?
Of course.
Thank you
No
so
problem.
much.
Apologies. So if, for example, in London, if the customers within London, looking at the graph in the bottom left-hand corner there, if they have a higher number of customers who have been out of work for a longer time, so 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, then what I would be expecting a local leader in London to do is to tailor the training at my disposal there, or the provisions, or the services that we can offer, the help that we can give our customers in London, tailored to customers who need perhaps the more basic skills because they've been out of work for longer than perhaps in another part of the country. So what this page really does in a nutshell is give our local leaders that customer demographic breakdown to understand what is my customer base made of, and therefore is the offer that I can make locally to those customers matching what their background and demographics are. So that's what this page is looking at here. So remember when talking about the pyramid, I talked about our top line KPIs and then our lines of inquiry underneath. The next page is an example of one of those lines of inquiry. So we know that our core offer to our customers, particularly those in the intensive work search group, is attending regular appointments. And that this view allows us to drill down and understand, first of all, the scale of the volume of appointments, but also what are the outcomes of those appointments. So if our interwork rates that I showed earlier are lower than what we are expecting them to be, the question that we ask ourselves within the business is, are we doing everything within our control to influence that? And obviously, if a customer is not attending their appointments, they are not receiving that support from us. So why is that? That would be the next line of inquiry, and so on. So what I would be expecting leaders to do with this screen is understand, do I have a problem with customers not coming for their appointments? And then I might then go away and think, okay, if we have a high level of customers not turning up for appointments, is that because we are arranging appointments for them at times and dates that the customer cannot attend? So is that our fault? Or is that because we just have a general problem with customers not turning up for their appointments? So that's what this screen is for here. So if we go to the next screen, volumes and outcomes of appointments are one thing. So that's one line of inquiry. But another question we then have to ask ourselves based on that is, are we making the best use of our work coach time? So again, our work coaches are our people at the front line that are helping customers move into work. And what this view helps tell the story of is, what proportion of our work coach time are we spending on customer related activity? So on the left hand side, you can see the minutes spent on actual appointments. And on the right hand side, you can see the time that is spent on administrative activities outside of appointments. So this is not productivity in the traditional sense. This is customer related activity. And so what this is showing is what proportion of our time that we should be spending with customers, either in appointments or administrative duties to support those appointments and those customers, what percentage of that time are we spending? So again, from the top of the pyramid there with our top line KPI through to our lines of inquiry, we've looked at our appointment volumes and what the outcomes of those are. We've looked at our work coach time and how are we spending that work coach time with our customers. And then the next slide then is almost the missing piece of the puzzle then, which is, what vacancies do we have at our disposal to match our customers to? So what is our labour market and our vacancies within each area looking like, and some more breakdowns and details of that. So you can see the graph in the top left hand corner there is the volume of vacancies that we have. And you can see that since October 2023, we've had quite a big reduction within our vacancies, kind of contextually speaking. So we had 840,000 back in October. We've got just under 650,000 now in October 2024. So that in itself is useful to understand how our labour market is changed within that time. Then on the right hand side, we've got a breakdown then of what types of vacancies those are. And you can see that the highest proportion of vacancies that we have is within the education or teaching sectors. And then on the bottom left-hand side, we've got a geographical breakdown of what those vacancies translate to, both in terms of volumes, but also the average predicted salary for those vacancies as well. So that's a geographical breakdown. So you can see there that the average salary in London and Essex is for accounting and finance jobs is £45,500 per year, whereas in Wales, where I'm from, for the same roles, the average salary is down at 39,775. So that gives you an idea of the different labour markets within those geographical areas. And in the bottom right-hand corner, then you can see the breakdown of those sectors from a national perspective and how many of those vacancies we have, how it's changing over time, and what the average salary of those are. So again, going back right to the beginning to the pyramid, we're telling that story from what our top line KPIs are, what are the levers that we have to contribute to those top line KPIs, right through to here, which is what vacancies do we actually have to match our customers to. And all of the data that you've seen here is available, like I said, from our national UK view right down to a local job centre. So we give all of our frontline leaders all the information that they need at their fingertips to be able to deliver a tailored service to the citizens within those areas. And I think, Kirsten, that's the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And apologies again for asking you to slow down a bit, so to be able to follow your presentation. What I wanted to ask, you have been able to create such a comprehensive system that, as you said, supports your counselor to really offer tailor-made support to your clients. Have you asked the feedback of your employees? And do you monitor anyhow how they use the possibilities that you have provided, and what are the results that you have received?
Yes, absolutely. So there's two parts to that. There's the part where we were building the dashboards themselves, and we made sure that we canvassed all of our operational colleagues, from our senior leaders right through to our frontline colleagues, to understand what are your requirements from a dashboard, and to try and meet those where we could. But also, what was really important about taking our operational colleagues' advice into our thinking was, what we also wanted to know was, where are the things that we could go wrong if we had a certain KPI? So, for example, what trouble would we get ourselves into if we set a KPI and then a local leader went out of their way to try and chase only that? What are the unintended consequences of that? And that was a really important exercise, because sometimes if we have colleagues from across the department who have their own interest, they might be putting forward something that they want us to measure because to them that makes sense in isolation. But actually there's unintended consequences on some of these other parts of the department if we do that. And so that was a really important exercise, definitely. And then what we do is we monitor the visits to every page within the dashboard to understand what pages are people visiting and which ones are they not. Not because we want to, shout at people for not visiting every page, but it's to help us understand, okay, why isn't this working for you? What do we need to do to improve this view so that it makes more sense to you and that you can get something out of it? Because ultimately, that is why we have built these views, is to help our frontline colleagues. So if any of this isn't working for them, we won't take it personally. We need to improve it so that it works for them.
Great, thank you. A question from the chat. If you could please explain where the vacancies data comes from and how the predicted salary is estimated.
Yes, absolutely. So we have a contract with a private company called Adzuna, and they provide us with the vacancy information. And even though, as I'm sure it's the case in Estonia and Sweden, where you have many different recruitment companies with different vacancies on, Adzuna act as an aggregator of different recruitment websites and companies, and they claim to have coverage for around 95% of all of the vacancies that are advertised online across the UK. So they are our main supplier, but we also have more local employers that our local job centres will be dealing with, which will be on top of that. So they will go out locally to attract vacancies and attract employers to advertise with us, so we can move our people into those vacancies as well. So you've got almost our kind of national view, our national offer, and then our local offer, which is really, really important, because if we don't have the right vacancies for our customers within those areas, then either we need to reskill our customers, or we need to go out and find the vacancies that suit our customers. So it's almost a two-prong approach.
Thank you, Mark. I'd like to ask more questions, but we are magnificently ended up at the time that we have been given, the 1.5 hours. So Mark, once again, thank you for sharing your experiences. I think it's a very truly comprehensive tool that provides so much information for the counselors to really provide the tailor-made support to our clients, which they really need. But wrapping up our today's webinar, I hope you all agree with me that it really has been an inspiring 1.5 hours with food for thought, I hope, to everyone, either from the examples of the Estonian Public Employment Services regarding cooperation with external partners, or from Arbetsförmedlingen about how we can raise the quality level of job ads, or as we just heard from United Kingdom about what kind of data can and should be made available to our employees in order to make the counseling process a most qualitative one. I believe the highlighted thoughts today could be about the quality of data in general, but also once we have the data, to make it available for other users as well, in order to make the most informed and qualitative decisions. So I thank all the presenters. I also thank WAPES for making this webinar possible. And over to you, Nicole, for final remarks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kerstin. Thank you so much to all the presenters today. So it was really, really enriching. And like you said, food for thought. Yes, definitely. And really, really very, very valuable information to all of us. So thank you all, to all of you also, for your questions and your participation. Yes, of course. And we need to conclude now. We have 2 minutes left. So really, really very good on time. And I really want to thank for the excellent preparation to our colleagues from the United Kingdom, Sweden, and Estonia. Thank you so much for this. And like Kerstin already said, unanswered questions, which we don't have a lot, but we have some, and we will be sending to you in written form to all registered persons. So, and we will also put it on the WAPES website along with the presentations and a link to the video from today's online webinar. So also would like to thank you, Kerstin, for your excellent moderation today. It was really great working with you. And of course, also the interpreters that have done an excellent job bearing with us for those 1.5 hours. So I know it's not always easy, but thank you so much. So really hope you have enjoyed the webinar. And I want to advertise 2 of our upcoming webinars, because we have one webinar coming up next Thursday on exploring the ILO Conventions 88 and 181. So if you're curious and want to take a look into that, if your country adopted or ratified both conventions, please take a peek into it and please register. I put them in the chat, but somehow the links are not working. Maybe Amandine, if you could put them in the chat, or for those that are interested in it, please send me an email so that I can give you the links for that. And they're also available on our website under activities. So before we're leaving, I would all love to invite you to complete the satisfaction survey that will be coming up after you're clicking off from this webinar, because your opinions and suggestions are very valuable also to us in order to improve the quality of our webinars. So thank you so much, and I wish you all a wonderful day, afternoon, or evening ahead of you, wherever you might be, and maybe some last words from our presenters.
Or if not, then I would like to draw your attention that most of the presenters provided links in their presentations. So as Maria very nicely put, that's what WAPES is for, to share experience, to share knowledge. So if you're interested in, then dig even deeper, look what's behind those links that have been shared. And yeah, I think all the presenters are happy to answer any additional questions you might have regarding to their presentations, even afterwards. So once again, thank you all, and have a nice evening, morning, afternoon, wherever in the world you currently are. Thank you.
Thank you.